Welcome to the First Responders Wealth Network. Our mission is to help all first responders change their mindset towards money and educate how to build long-term wealth through real estate investing. Are you ready?
All right, guys, welcome back. Another podcast. I got Dean Curtis here, my man, my fellow first responder who's crushing it and leading by example and has a lot of things on the go and on his plate. So, Dean, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll get going from there.
Sure. Dave, happy to be here. I'm an acting platoon chief with the Guelph Fire Department, and I've been on the Guelph Fire Department for 27 years, but I've actually been a firefighter for closer to 30 years. I was a volunteer firefighter for 3 years before that. Became interested in real estate investing relatively early. I bought my first investment property when I was 21, but about 5 years later, I had a few tenant problems, a few other issues came up. I ended up getting out of that, took about a 10-year break, and then I got heavily into real estate investing again when we bought our first cottage, and it ended up becoming a short-term vacation rental. And we currently have 12 different properties and kind of all different ways of real estate investing. Like we have a couple of student rentals. We bought a condo on speculation that we were going to just assign, but we ended up just keeping it and putting a family into it. We have a couple of just straight up rentals where we're renting to families. We've done BRRRR strategy on 3 different properties, and they're now duplexes. I have a 4-plex. I have a little small piece of land in Paraguay, part of an orange plantation there. So we're just all over the place. And there's a bigger story on kind of how I got into that, but I'm sure you'll take me there anyway, Dave.
Yeah, we got lots of areas that we can touch on for sure. I love that you got your own meetup group and you've been helping educate other people and, meetup groups. I think it's a great way for people either to get started or stay connected and keep the finger on the pulse and, learn different strategies, which I know you've just touched on that you've done. Why don't you talk a little bit about your meetup group and how that even came about? How did that get started?
So I love, listening to podcasts. I love going to meetup groups, and I found that I was going around to all of these different cities, joining meetup groups, traveling sometimes up to a couple of hours to attend these meetings. And I thought, well, it's a big enough city. Why isn't there just something here that's local? So it's for selfish reasons, really. Like I thought I can start this group. I can bring in these experts to me, and I don't have to drive around to see them. I can have them come and tell me all about their history and what they're specialists at and learn from it. And it's a great way to learn from other people. So we're in our 3rd year now. And obviously, we love meeting in person. I want to get back to that. The last little while, we've had to transition into doing everything through Zoom. But we were up to about 50 people. The group is growing. We want to get back to the in-person meetings. Every single meeting, we would have 2 different people come in and speak. There was no charge to come to the meetings. It was just everyone was there to try and learn from each other. We would get together 5 times a year. So we get together every 2 months, but we take the summer off. So our next meeting is coming up in September. Actually, September 28th is our next meeting. And I'm hoping It can be in person. We'll see. It might be a last minute decision, but I'm hoping we can have an in-person meeting again.
That's awesome. That's a good number. Yeah, I find with the meetup groups, it's a great way to learn. It's a great way to stay connected. Things are always changing. It's a great way to keep up to date. And, having those people come in. It's funny that you say it's kind of selfish reasons. It's almost how my podcast started, whereas it was just more of a hobby, just connecting with people who are professionals in different areas that I'm not familiar with and networking. And, here we are again, 3 years later. So kind of a similar path, and it's pretty neat to see what transpires from that, right? I mean, you just start learning and then you start getting into different strategies and start building your portfolio, and you really become really well-rounded and really understanding the different ways that you can go, and just that financial IQ that comes along with it that not a lot of people get exposed to. So do you get a lot of people coming to your meetups from work and first responders and that sort of thing? Or is it a hard push at work? Or guys like, I don't need that. I got a pension and I'm doing just fine. I don't need to learn about real estate.
I don't know if you find the same at your work, Dave. It's a hard sell, right? And I don't think it's just specific to the fire department or police department. I think it's just specific in general. I'm on social media, I'm on Instagram, I'm talking to people. I try and preach it wherever I can. I love, what it's done for me and my family and what it can do easily for other people. But it doesn't matter. I think you just have to have the growth mindset or just have the right personality, or you're just simply not going to do it. And I'm starting to learn that not everybody has the same mindset that real estate investors do. We're in these groups together because we all think the same way. And I think some people can learn that mindset, but I think more people just will never have that mindset. So yes, I'm at the fire hall talking to people all the time about how amazing it is. You get a couple of people who will start asking you a few more questions. Maybe they're kicking tires a little bit, and maybe one or two of them follow through to actually buy a place.
Yeah, it definitely, I think, well, number one, I think a lot of us in our area anyway, I know with my audience, I talk to guys down in, Kentucky, for example, that are making 25, 30K. And it's like, when I was offering my coaching course, which was 5,000 at the time when I was doing it, I didn't even realize these guys are only making like 30K. Whereas you look, and then that's a lot of freaking money, but for guys that are making 100 or 120, that's a little bit more relative. You're like, okay, I can maybe invest that. So it was an eye opener for me to see the different areas throughout the world, really, or North America, of what people consider comfortable, right? And I think in our own backyard, that comfort level is so high that there's no real desire or need to really do more if they don't want to, unless you already have that kind of bug or that desire to kind of level up and accomplish more or do more financially, which obviously creates more opportunity and resources. So yeah, it's just interesting to get the feedback from you, because I wondered how many people are gravitated towards your meetup through work and that sort of thing, but it's sometimes a hard sell. And it shouldn't have to be a sell, but that word maybe isn't the right one, but it's just not everyone's gravitated towards opportunity and growth. So
yeah. I don't know whether when you talk to them about it, whether there's some skepticism. Oh, is he going to try and sell me something? Is he trying? But it doesn't. You don't need to invest with me. You don't need to invest with Dave. Just get out there and do something. And don't. You take in what we have to say, but then you can also just look online, and the expression that 90% of all wealthy millionaires made their money through real estate. It just seems to me to be the clearest path to making any kind of money,
And until sometimes people hit those hard times or kind of roadblock or speed bump in life where they don't have those extra resources, that's when they kind of kick themselves like, damn, I should have been doing this a long time ago. Or, okay, so let's dive into like some of the stuff that you've done, because I'm interested. The short-term rentals, I think that's a really interesting market and area. And we were talking off air a little bit about certain market actually told you that you couldn't have your 4 cottages in one area because you're deemed commercial, which obviously there's counter arguments on both sides. But why don't you talk about just your experience in the short-term rental world?
Absolutely. So yeah, so I still do have one short-term rental cottage, but it's in a different township now. So to bring the audience up to speed on what we talked about earlier, when I started out, I bought my first cottage, I guess it was 2012. At the time, I thought, even if it ends up being cash flow negative, I'm going to rent it out as much as I can. And I had no idea what the market was going to be like, whether it was going to work or not. But I thought worst case scenario is I've got a vacation rental that I can go and enjoy. And if I don't have to pay 100% of the costs, if somebody helps me offset those costs a little bit, then I'm winning. That's great. Well, my God, I put it up for rent, and wow, as I'm sure the phone went off the hook, the emails like crazy, and I way underpriced it because my experience was always just renting it out to a family full term. So I'm thinking, okay, what could I rent a cottage for a week? Well, I'll take the monthly cost, divide it by 4, maybe add a little bit, and of course, everybody was going crazy at that price. So I realized, wow, I'm onto something here. This is amazing. Then a piece of land came up for sale on the same lake. So I thought I'd love to get that piece of land and eventually build on it. And we have 3 kids. And I started to think of this dream of eventually, wouldn't it be awesome to have 3 cottages where each kid, I could pass down that cottage when I pass away, they could have that handed down to them or whatever. So we bought that land, and then I'm sitting on that land and I'm thinking, this land's not making me any money. So we ended up building right away, and it started to rent out like crazy. Some other people saw what I was doing and became interested. So I had two other individuals come to me about doing a joint venture, right? So I thought, this is great. I knew the township, I knew things were going really well. I joint ventured with them. So now we're up to 4 cottages. Then I had some other people saw that I was managing them, doing them successfully. So I actually started a management company at that time, and we grew to 13 different cottages. So my wife, who was a realtor at the time, and I wasn't, I'm now a realtor as well, but at the time I was not. I was just the short-term rental guy. My wife is the realtor. We would find a great candidate for short-term vacation rental for any family that was interested. We would show them the property, they would buy the property, I would put it under our management, and they would cash flow like crazy. So what ended up happening is that specific township that we were in, there was a lot of full-time residents in the area, and short-term rentals was really, I don't want to say a new thing. People would always rent, but it would just be mom and pop renting out 1 week here, 1 week there. The idea of it becoming more mainstream Airbnb short-term rentals, that was kind of new to the area. So we had a lot of backlash about what they deemed to be commercial rentals. So if you had a cottage, like I said, and just rented it out here and there 1 week, 2 weeks, no problem. But for this guy, Dean Curtis, who's got 4 different properties, and then they saw I had a management company that actually looked after 13 total, they thought, oh man, this is not just him renting it out. This is a commercial enterprise. So I was getting letters from their lawyers, cease and desist, just stop. I went to my lawyer. They basically said, you can fight it. It'll cost you $100 grand probably to fight it, and you'll likely end up losing because it was not listed in the zoning as one of the permitted uses. So, and it was just that township. And unfortunately, that township is now going to miss out on a ton of benefits to the local economy. We were employing, cleaning people in the area. We were employing handymen. We were sending people to their restaurants. We were sending people to any tourist attractions. And now they're going to be missing out on a lot of that stuff. So I think there's a healthy balance, Dave. I think instead of outright banning, I think if you were to, and some people are going to hate me saying this, but even if you regulate it with reasonable regulation, because I don't want people partying at my cottage. I don't want people destroying it or ruining the septic tank. All the same things that the residents were arguing against. I don't want that either. So I think if there's a way we can control it, make sure that there's fire inspections, make sure that the maximum occupancy isn't gone over. And that's what we want as owners as well. So I think there is definitely a healthy balance.
And there always seems to be a learning curve with all this stuff too. And initially everyone's initial response, especially for areas that have never been exposed to this. Sometimes you got some older people on the board. I mean, any type of change is a pushback, right? So sometimes when you're leading the way, you get those arrows in your back, so to speak, and it's difficult to kind of pave the way. So what year was this when you had to make that decision?
So we're now 2021. I think we transitioned out of our last cottage. Last cottage in that area, 2018, 2019.
Okay, because I feel like there's a bit of a train everyone's jumped on as of late, especially during COVID, the cottages and the high rental market and Airbnb and all that stuff. But you were definitely ahead of that, and you even had the management system up and going and all that. So what was the biggest benefit that you saw from the short-term rentals? Was it the cash flow?
Yeah, it was 100% would definitely be the cash flow, being able to have a place to go on vacation with your family. Although I will say some of the negatives are it's going to be a lot more work. And I found that when you start to grow and expand, and at the point where I had 4 cottages, you start to lose the part about being able to go and enjoy it, because now it's a business. And every time I showed up at my own cottage, I'd be looking around and I'd see, oh, this wall needs to be painted and I need to fix this. And this couch is starting to look a little bit old. I got to replace that. And so I found every time I was going to the cottage, it felt more like work than relaxing at the cottage, because I want to, I wanted this to be a vacation destination that a family is going to talk about and really love. They're going to share with their family and friends, and they are definitely want to come back again. So everything had to be perfect. If there was a little, I'd show up at the cottage and I saw a beer cap on the ground, it drove me crazy. I had to pick it up. You know what I mean? Like it just, everything had to be perfect. So there's a lot of benefits. Cash flow is amazing, but there is a lot of work that goes with it as well. I'll say that for sure.
Cool. And then with your experience in the management side of things, maybe you kind of let's educate some people who are maybe interested in the short-term rentals. Let's start off with finding a management company like that would manage your short-term rentals. What can you suggest in your experience actually doing it? Let's start off with what would make a good management company for a short-term rental.
Okay, so you got to find out what you're getting for the money that you're paying. So you're going to notice that the rates being charged, there's a very broad scope, but there's also a broad range of services that might be included in that. So you're going to find the rates anywhere between 15% up to 30 or 35%. That's what you're going to end up paying. Now,
wow.
Let's say you're paying 35%. Maybe that includes photos, that might include your cleaning, that might include everything else. On the low end, you're paying a lot more certainly than a regular management company because there's a lot more work involved. You've got people coming in and out of the place. You've got brand new tenants every week and maybe every couple of days, right? So the management company, and it's about being in the hospitality service too. So it's not like if you got a phone call, it can wait till Monday morning to be dealt with. This management company has to be responsive 24/7. If a tenant wants to, cook up a pizza pop in the microwave at 1 a.m. and the microwave's not working, you might get a phone call at 1 a.m. saying my toaster doesn't work, my microwave doesn't work. How do I turn on the TV? And they are there only for 2 days to have the best time. You want to make sure you're back to them right away. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is how you get it working, or my handyman will be there first thing in the morning with a brand new toaster. You have to have all those systems in place. So you want to make sure that your management company has somebody that would be responsive 24/7, and what services are being included specifically for the price that you're paying. Because like I said, even the higher price, if you're paying 25%, maybe the amount of services you're getting with it, that's including your cleaning fees, that's including photos of the property, whatever, it might not be so bad.
Yeah, and definitely an increase of cash flow is definitely more than that 30% I would consider, especially in those areas for a monthly, standardized 12-month lease kind of style. You really ramp up those weekly or monthly rents. It's pretty impressive, some of the numbers I've seen. I know like Sarah Larby, she was showing me some of her numbers, and I was like, man, that ain't bad.
let me share with you. I'm happy to share numbers with you, Dave. So
Sure.
let me give you an example. So in that township where we had to transition out, actually the example I gave you of the property or the land that we bought and we built on it. So that specific cottage, we built that cottage. Now it happened to be on 11 acres around the lake, which sounds amazing, but a big portion of that right in the middle was environmentally protected. So you would never be able to build on it. Now, on the far side of the environmentally protected, there was another small chunk where I always thought I could sever that off. So we wanted to keep that cottage. So I had to transition that into just a regular rental because I didn't want to sell it because I wanted to see if I could get the severance down the road. Sold all the other properties. So now that specific cottage, when we were renting throughout the summer, we were renting it for $3,500 a week during the summer.
Wow.
Now that I have a family in there full time, because it's a lot different market up there, it's not as an affluent area. So the only monthly amount that I could get is $2,500 per month. So that gives you a prime example. During the summer, I was making more per week than what I can get per month right now currently.
Wow. See, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Now how, okay. And now what was the size of that cottage? How many bedrooms, bathrooms, that kind of thing?
So we went a little bit overboard. So it was going to be a 3-bed, 2-bath, and we wanted an unfinished basement. When they started to do the demolition, they thought they were just going to be able to dig down. They found rock. They had to dynamite some rock out. Long story short, they made the hole a lot bigger than what we thought. So we had big 9-foot ceilings in the basement, and we ended up finishing the basement as well. So it turned out really well. So it ended up being a 5-bedroom cottage. Now, we probably could have even got more for that property per week. The only problem was it's on a very, very tiny lake. It's basically a little bit bigger than a pond, Dave. So it's only, there's
Right.
6 or 7 cottages on the lake, but that appeals to a certain clientele too, not having to worry about jet skis or speed boats or anything. You can sit on the dock, have a relaxing coffee, and you can see where your kids are swimming. They're not so far away. You know where they are. So we were focusing on that clientele.
Cool. Nice. Right on. So what would you do for like laundry services there? Did you just have your own laundry and people would come in and do that at your residence? Or was there like an area close by that, you know, you're able to manage all those 13 properties?
You know, people that operate short-term rentals, they run it one of 2 different ways. Either they'll ask that you bring your own linens, and then that each guest will just bring their own linens with them. I never did like that concept too much. I always wanted it to have more of a hotel feel. I want you to come with your family. Everything is perfect waiting for you. And then you just get to leave at the end of the week and, you know, again, just have the perfect vacation. So the way we had it set up, we always had 3 sets of linens, right? We had 1 set that's going to be on the bed, nice and fresh for when the guests arrive. We always have 1 in storage as a spare, ready to go. And the cleaner has the 3rd set that she's taking to the laundromat in between the rentals. So she comes in, takes all the dirty linens, puts that into her vehicle to do at her own leisure. She puts a new set on the bed, and there's always a spare set in the locked cleaner's closet.
Okay. Interesting. And yeah, I like that idea too. I mean, if you're going to be paying top dollar, last thing you want to do is, okay, well, I got to bring linens. No, so what size beds are they? Oh, I got to find something that matches. You know what I mean? It just, I agree.
I always pictured, you know, a single mom showing up with 3 little ones and trying to lug all this laundry in, and she comes at 11 o'clock at night, she shows up. I thought, no way. You're just going to come in and be able to crash right away.
Good call. Okay, so just a little bit of a change up. Just, I know that in those short-term rentals, the Landlord and Tenant Act here, again, in Ontario, for those of you who are abroad or in different countries, you know, understand your landlord and tenant rights or association that are mandated in your areas. But here in Ontario specifically, how does that work for the short-term rental?
I'm sorry, restate your question. What did you say there?
So as far as the Landlord and Tenant Act, so when you're doing the short-term rentals, you're not locked in as a typical, you know, tenant under the LTA, right? So
that's right.
And then Landlord and Tenant Board rules. So how does that, maybe just give a breakdown of how that works for you operating a short-term rental?
Yeah. So there's a lot of benefits to that, obviously, right? So with the short-term rentals, we're taking a security deposit usually as soon as they sign. So if they're booking for a year from now, we'll take a security deposit from them. Before their stay, we get the entire amount for the rental 1 month before they arrive. And sometimes, depending on, we had one property that was renting for over $5,500 a week. We would get that payment 2 months in advance. So they would pay in advance, and you're never going to have a professional tenant who just stays there. If they've got money to spend $5,500 for 1 week, you know, they're not going to risk, well, number one, you know, even if they tried to stay there and you took them to the landlord tenant board and everything, right, they're going to owe you an arm and a leg. But I mean, they're paying in advance that amount of money. They're not going to end up, you don't have the same kind of dangers as you do with a straight up rental. So I always love that aspect. You've got the money well in advance. By collecting 1 or 2 months in advance, if that money doesn't come in, you still have time to pivot and rent out that week again to somebody else. And then at the end of their stay, when they go home, they get that security deposit back again, and you've already got your next set of renters in there.
So just like a hotel, the hotel rules apply.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. What is it that you're looking at moving forward now? Like today, when we're recording this, what's your goals? What are you focusing on? What markets are you focusing on? I'm always interested to hear what people are aiming towards.
And that's a tough question for me to answer right now, Dave. So I'm kind of looking, everything is on the table. So my wife tells me that the next property I have to be more hands off. So she's suggesting that maybe the next one I'm a little bit, because I still manage all of my own properties. So, you know, I get the calls if the toilet's leaking, I'm still dealing with all that. I'm not in there actually swinging a hammer. I've got people I can call on for that, but I'm still managing them all. So I think we're kind of looking for something a little bit more passive. I like the idea of maybe investing in another vacation destination. So I was really close. I actually had a deposit down on a piece of property in Costa Rica at one point. We backed out at the last minute. So I'm still a little bit curious about Costa Rica. I went down to Florida. I had a look down there. I was researching Belize as well. There's certain countries where you can invest in, and if you invest over a certain amount, you also get citizenship, investors citizenship. So that's, it's an interesting aspect. I don't know. I think the only problem, of course, with investing in those countries is a lot of time you'll need 100% financing. So I want to be able to leverage the bank's dollars too. So do you buy something here, make better money on it, and just vacation wherever you want to vacation for the rest of your life? Or I don't know, I keep coming back to the idea of buying somewhere down there. So to answer your question, Dave, I'm kind of all over the place. Everything's on the table. I'm investigating everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. An investor I know, he always, he's got a few more years under his belt than I do, but his whole thing was always, I'm going to buy my vacation rental out in PEI. Yep. Or not even PEI, some, armpit of Illinois somewhere, right? Or Ohio, and I'll take the cash flow and I'll vacation wherever I want. There's different ways to look at it, but cash flow is so tight right now in many of these markets that, that rule maybe 10 years ago doesn't apply as much as it did, then. So, but yeah, I'm the same, man. I'm looking at lots of different options, looking at Airbnbs right now down in even Arizona area, south of Scottsdale, just to see what the numbers look like. And there are actually, I just connected with someone who in the US anyway, no doc financing. So basically it's 4% that he was claiming. So I don't know about international, but him as an American with no documentation, depending on what it is you're investing in, like Airbnbs they like, but he was getting quotes for 4%. So
wow.
Yeah, so
I'll that info.
I will. And I'm sure I'll get some emails after making that comment on here too. But
you said it, not me.
Yeah. Well, I haven't followed up, so maybe I shouldn't be saying that yet. But that's what I was told. So very interesting. There are opportunities out there, I think, depending on the cash flow, can sustain the different type of interest rates, right? So
no, and I think you're right. I think, with retirement on the horizon for me, my worry is in buying a vacation destination. My worry is every time I go down there, just like I said with the cottages, I don't want it to feel like work though, and it's just a personality thing for me. Like your listeners might be totally fine with it, but I know that for me, I go down there and instead of being able to, even if I work 2 days out of the 7 days that I'm there, and relax the other 5, I think that would be great. I'm just worried about having a place where I go down there for 7 days and the whole 7 days I'm thinking and worrying about how to make this better, and not really being able to relax. So I don't know.
Yeah. You just got to drink more, buddy. You just got to
I think that's it.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I think the short-term rental talk was really great. I hope a lot of people got some value out of that. I know you got your hands in a lot of different areas and you're a really well-educated guy. So we could have talked about a lot of things, but I think that was a good one. So I appreciate you coming on. Again, just mention your meetup and how people can get a hold of you if they would like.
Absolutely. So best way is probably Instagram or through Facebook. I post on Instagram a lot. You can follow my journey there. We're always looking at different types of investments, student rentals, vacation rentals, duplex, burr strategy, anything like that. So you can actually follow my adventures. I really try and give the good and the bad. I think a lot of times in our field, Dave, you're seeing a lot of people are just saying it's all sunshine and rainbows. But if there's a leaky toilet, I'm going to post, look, this is what I got to deal with too. And I think it's great. Obviously, I'm out there, investing, but there are some negatives that come with it. So I want to make sure I paint a real picture. But yeah, if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, it's just Dean Curtis Real Estate. You can find me there. Also, I'm a realtor in the area. So if anybody's looking for properties in the area, I'm happy to show you through any type of investment property, or even just talk to you about short-term vacation rentals, student rentals, anything like that. As you can tell, I love talking about this stuff. I'm happy to share with anybody.
That's awesome. Well, like you said, if you want to achieve the unordinary, you got to do the unordinary, right? Yeah. So a lot of people will resonate with that for sure. All right, cool, man. Appreciate you coming on. We'll keep in touch as always, and just enjoy the rest of your summer.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review on iTunes. Also, check out our website at 911wealthnetwork.com or contact Dave directly at 911wealthnetwork.com. Stay safe out there.